Greetings, 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 greetings. You are now tuned into the vault. Trust Christian own not to control everything. Just want to thank you for tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listening to replay. All of our current listeners, all of our listeners, long time listeners. Always appreciate once again everybody for tuning in live, listening to replay. We got a special episode today. This is the Vault episode 302. Holding company. Very popular question we've had throughout the years. Never actually did an episode on it. So this is definitely going to be something that, people are looking forward to wanting to talk about, whether it's live listeners or even in the replay. Just feel free to type into the chat. We always reply. So feel free to type into the chat, even as you listen in the replay. But we definitely want to do this episode. This is the Vault episode 302, Holding Company. This episode is about people coming to the vault for many years now asking about, a holding company, whether that's in trusteeship, whether that's in LLC, or whether that's in C Corp, or whether it's in S Corp. We hear it from many different angles. And so, we hear it in many different, positions. A holding company is just a company that's holding possibly a position in other companies and things of that nature. So, appreciate Philly for tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate Philly for tuning in live, listening to replay. So once again, a holding company is just a company traditionally that would be looked at as always holding a position in possibly other companies. Position may be an equitable stake. So when we see these type of companies, such as a holding company, they may be a majority owner as well of another company. So you see these type of positions that are taken with these type of entities as well. We're really excited to talk about this new concept that it's really not new, but it's a concept to the public that has become more and more prevalent. It's sort of like the S corps of the day, where they're calling them SPACs, special purpose acquisition companies. So they're not just a holding company; they're a special purpose acquisition company. And so the SPAC game has become what people in the public side or even in the private sector would like to say, oh, it's becoming saturated, things of that nature. And it's not becoming saturated. It's just people don't want competition. When we talk about holding companies, SPACs are companies that are supposedly taking companies public. They're taking a portfolio of companies public because they have a holding in multiple companies. And even if it's something where they're taking a company public, it's because they're able to raise funds and they're acting as a holding company in some level of majority ownership capacity, or otherwise, some holding capacity of equitable position through some type of debt holding position through some type of promissory note. So we definitely wanted to talk about this subject matter, the holding company. When people have asked for years, well, Trust Grisham, what about the LLC? Is it a holding company? Can we can we do that there? Can we do that in the C corp? Which one's better? Well, that's up to you. Can both of them do it? Yes. So what are we doing with the holding companies? The holding companies are usually companies that are not interacting with the public, so they would be positions of privacy, trusteeship. So holding, but if even if in the public is holding assets too, but not majority of the time. Most assets should be held in private capacity and transacting things and doing things on the public side in the public capacity, and that's how you really be able to maintain yourself as a holding company partner in a position where you're not looked at as the owner, because your position is of you're in a position of control, not of ownership, and you don't own the assets. The assets are all being held by another entity. And so that's why when we talk about the holding company itself, this concept is, oh, well, I want this one company to manage all these other sub brands. And so we were talking to a party earlier today, and we were just talking to them about what's called a DBA. So the holding company is the original LLC or the C corp or whatever it is. But the DBA is the names that it's holding. So let's just say, for example, there's X, Y, and Z LLC or X, Y, and Z C corp, and they're gonna hold X, Y, and Z Productions, X, Y, and Z Publishing, X, Y, and Z uh, Entertainment, X, Y, Z. It's almost like when they create a movie, they call it a franchise. So they have holding companies. So they have a holding company that holds the franchise. The franchise might have DVD sales, it might have streaming sales, it might have merchandise that it sells, all different types of merchandise that it sells. So it may have a sequel, so that means it owns the rights to the name. That's what the holding company looks like. Holding company, leasing, XYZ leasing company. It's a DBA. And so we gave an example to the individual earlier today and told them that, okay, so how does it look in the public? It looks like this. You got Coca-Cola, DBA, Sprite. Coca-Cola owns Sprite. We're just going to use this as an example. So it's Pepsi, DBA, Sierra Mist. It's the holding company. The holding company is the company on stock exchange. Pepsi might not have a stock, but Coca-Cola may have one. That's the holding company. Uh, Google may have a stock. YouTube doesn't. It's the holding company. But then Google is when it went and got gobbled up by the holding company, Alphabet A. Alphabet A is the holding company. Google is a subsidiary. It's a part of the holding. Alphabet owns more than that. It owns more than Google, and Google is just one part of its portfolio. That's a holding company. People say, "Well, can I do this with the public side LLC or the C corp?" It's like, okay, you're on the public side, so when you're on the public side, the options are slightly limited, but you do have some flexibility. Think about it. Majority of people on the public side have these entities. So LLCs, some people use them on the public side for holding companies. Is it the strongest position? Not at all. C corp, is it the strongest position? Not at all. But is it something that can coddle a person through the initial throngs of trustee of excuse me of managerial entrepreneurship? Yes. People say, okay, well, I got this company. It's going to be called the Big ATM House. So they got the Big ATM House, and then they're going to have Big ATM House Entertainment, Big ATM House Publishing, Big ATM House Productions, Big ATM Water. That's how people do it. And it's just, is it all under one company? Possibly. It's called Big Company Entertainment. That's where they are. They're a holding company, and then they created DBAs possibly, or they went out and created other companies that those companies are separate from other companies, but they're still held by the original company, a holding company. Is it supposed to be separate from yourself? For sure. If you're going to be even in a position of a holding company, why would you own it? It's a holding company. It's almost like saying it's foreign. Why? Because it shouldn't be domestic. Holding, asset holding, privately, contracts privately. Holding company. How do you handle a holding company? You handle it as it's really probably one of the more challenging positions to be in because you're having to manage a lot more moving parts. Moving parts of multiple companies, different aspects of growing a different company. I think that people have definitely undervalued studying for entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is not necessarily something that you can just read in a book, but it is something that it should be almost be able to be put in a book. But there's an emotional aspect to it, just like money. There's an emotional aspect to money, and so we can just see that there's things that go along with business that most people, until they engage in that particular environment of ups and downs and things of that nature in business, they may never know what that's like, whether it's getting a company off the ground or not. So that capacity is very important. So once again, when we talk about the holding company, we're talking about the holding company having multiple companies under it. Now, are these DBAs separate companies from that company? Well, do they file taxes separately? No, they're using the same EIN, but they may have separate bank accounts. We know people right now that their family have multiple divisions inside of their foundation. So inside of the foundation, they have a foundation, the holding company. And in the foundation, they have multiple divisions. They have to have multiple separate bank accounts because the business it has different divisions. There are huge companies that have multiple divisions, that have multiple accounts because they're doing things differently. Once again, it's DBA, doing business as. That's what they're doing. Oh, I filed a DBA. Think about it. How they go open up the bank account? Because they had a DBA. That's how you open up another bank account. DBA. Appreciate Cali for tuning in live, listening to the replay. Shout out to Cali, California, for tuning in live, listening to the replay. The holding company. This is once again a very important topic. A lot of people always request this. Oh, so how do I set up my structure? How do I make sure my structure is able to make sure that it can all go back to one entity? Oh, really? But are you really in a position where it's the foundation? Or is it going to what you call your trust? Because the trustees didn't want to get over calling it their trust yet. You didn't want to get over calling it, you didn't correct your speech yet. It's taking you months and months and months to fix your speech and say it's not your trust. Because if you say it's your trust, that means it's a public trust. It's not private now. The holding company is separate. The private trust is separate. It's a holding company, right? So you got the holding company. And you're acting in multiple capacities. You're having to manage multiple people sometimes, specifically in trusteeship, especially specifically when you're having to set up different projects and make sure that those people are executing those projects. It's a holding company. You got to have multiple skill sets. What are the skill sets? Leadership. What are the skill sets? Communication. Are you going to sit around and let people tell you and do a bad deal? Are you going to let people rip the family estate off? Are you going to go for any nonsense? Everything can use a DBA. DBAs are just another way of the initial entity using a doing business as name. It's very self-explanatory. Whether it's a sole prop, why do you think they have sole props the way they have them set up? Sole props. Is it like a DBA? Well, some people, they'll go Rufus Doofus dump his shop. They're gonna go out and say, hey, I'm gonna go start out Rufus Doofus mowing lawn company. But it's a sole prop. It's a DBA. Oh, hold on. Let's see how the Moors do this, because we had some Moors pop their head out of the woodworks once again. Because what business were they talking in their community? We went through the whole process with them. Oh, declare your nationality and then you'll be rich. We haven't seen anyone come out with a crown yet. We've seen adverse possession from these people. We've seen them try to get hundreds of millions of dollars and don't know how to raise a convertible note. Shout out to Dana Beach for tuning in live. Dana Beach, Florida. We got Dana Beach, Florida specifically. Dana Beach tuning in live, listening in the replay. Shout out to Dana Beach. The holding company. But they listening to the vote. They've been listening to the vote for years. Why? Because it's business. It ain't personal. We got to get our feelings not out of this situation. It's business. You think any of the cultures not having hard conversations about money? So it's the same thing in business. We having a hard conversation. The hard conversation is, okay, how am I supposed to be structured, trust Christian, and the vault? How am I supposed to be structured? How is the holding company supposed to hold all the other companies so I can minimize my liabilities? How's it supposed to be structured? The holding company. What entity does it need to be? You're telling me it could be any entity, but it can't be every entity. No. The holding company is to do what? When we look at the holding company is more when we talk about the holding company, we're talking about more like a perspective of just a simple position where they're holding like maybe like a equitable position, which means they actually hold the asset. And so sometimes you'll see on the public side where people have like leasing companies. Like you see a lot of leasing companies that are like property management companies. They may own the building, but they'll have a property management company that's doing business as, and now they have like they're taking orders for renting out property for property management and things of that nature. So you see a lot of companies do DBAs in that respect in the real estate environment. Uh, you see it in various different fields where you see holding companies. Of course, this is just more of a ownership position. Let's just say you get people that want to go into a deal and trust. So most of the times, everybody's going in from a trustee position. So no one's going in into a position where they're compromising their holding or the holding of the particular entity. No one's liable, and that's how business is conducted in all higher realms. Is business is conducted through contract. So when you talk about holding companies, people try to get slick all the time. Oh, trust Christian, can I make the trustee a trust? Yeah, you saying that you think you slick, but how do you know how to open up a brokerage account doing that? You don't know how to do that. You don't know how to do business where that's the case. Why? Because people on the public side don't even know how to deal with it. They'll take weeks to do your paperwork. Why? Because they're not familiar with it. They're familiar with LLCs and S corps and C corps. They're familiar with this. But you're talking about, oh, I'm gonna go in here with trustee status. Oh yeah, and then this is gonna be this and this is gonna be that. And they're gonna say, so who's signing on this behalf? Who's signing on this behalf? And they're gonna see you, and then you're gonna be like, and what if that? What you gonna get shaking boots? That's what happens. Some people get shaking boots. How do you know it's not going to be you? We're telling you the dark side of trusteeship. We're not going to give you all the glitz and glamour. It's no glitz and glamour to being in a position where you own nothing, control everything. There's no glitz and glamour to it. Do you see the wealthiest families showing off their wealth? You don't see wealthy families showing off their wealth. But oh no, for somebody under that position, they think they can show off. Showing off gets your head chopped off. You think that don't get that? You think that doesn't happen? You want to show off? You got a bigger house than the politician that's passing laws in that area. You don't think you're gonna have to join the situation? You don't think you're gonna have to give your fair share? The holding company. People say, okay, what about the holding company in my personal life? Because it's own not to control everything. How do I handle that? Well, it sounds like you got to deal with your family again, the family estate. How many people are dealing with their family estate? How many people are having family meetings? This is where you gotta have a family meeting, and you gotta do family business. You gotta sit there, have a family meeting, because when you have the family meeting, that's the XYZ holding company, and that family meeting dictates all your actions. So when you come back to the table, you bring the money back to the table, to the family. That's what's going on. So you know how to run the play. It's business as usual. The holding company. You're doing it for the family. From one generation to the next. Think about how simple of a decision this is for trusteeship. We got the workshop coming up May 1st. Cornell's doing the webinar on the 28th of March. We're putting in the work. Everything's growing right now. The holding company's been growing. Holding position is just a position of asset protection. But what are you going to do when you get in that position? Are you going to be growing company, or is it just going to still be holding? See, some people get stuck at the holding. Is that you? This is the dark side of trusteeship. It ain't all pretty. It ain't all glitz and glamour. Are you going to grow it, or are you just going to hold it? Which one you going to do? This is trusteeship. You got to grow and you got to hold. You got to know when to buy and when to hold and when to sell. Oh no, Trust Christian. Investing in my private education. This is my first episode. I'm just the first time I listened to you. I heard you talking about some things. Now you're talking about a private education. You got to get a private education. What does that mean? You got to invest in your private education. It may be a consultation. It may be trustee training. We got the workshop coming up. You say, oh, I'm listening to this information, and all the guys that been selling me stuff, they've been selling me stuff. But you're not selling it, Trust Christian. You just talking about it. Exactly. Oh, Trust Christian, can I argue and debate? We're not here for argue and debate. We're here for the facts. People that come through the vault, they come to get the facts. This isn't Trust Christian information. It's the law. We share with you to go to these websites and look at this information. The holding company, though. What company do we go with? We go with what's on the public side. And what are we doing on the public side? Are you doing real estate now? Are you doing investing? A lot of people are utilizing corps to go through and start doing a lot of these brokerage firms with these companies. A lot of these brokerage firms are trying to classify them as professional investors, specifically if they're going through with LLCs or C corps on the brokerage firm side. But sometimes not all firms are doing that, but some of them are trying to classify those type of traders as people that are professionals. And it depends on how much money you have in there. Will they classify you as a professional rather quickly? Depending on how much money you have in there, how much you're trading with, and things of that nature. A lot of people come in and say, well, how's that going to work for the trading side? Think about it. If you're a trader, you're working for the holding company. So any money you make is not yours. What if you had to go out and open up an account because you were in another country, you were in an emerging market, but when the money's made in that account, it's not your account. It's made in the trust account. It's made in the bank account for the company. It's made it for the C Corp. The holding company. Everybody asks about the holding company. Oh, Trust Christian, so how does this work? Where, I got all these companies I'm trying to build up, and, I'm trying to, you know, I got all these different ideas. So where do I start? Because does this company hold two companies, or this company have all the companies? Once again, you don't get creative in creating a contract. You get creative in it. You gotta be creative. It's no telling how you can do it. But one thing for sure, two things for certain, is that what? There is a holding company. There's a base. Do we recommend that all of it go to one holding company in your entire life? No. If is that the case, because it's a foundation, that's fine. Why? Because it's a tax-free entity. It's a charity. The foundation is a charity. Warren Buffett say, I'm not giving the money away to my kids. I'm giving it at the way to charity. That's what he did to his own foundation. Bill Gates, he was giving away his stock to what? Charity. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Hmm. The holding company. One of those misnomers out in the public because no one wants to talk about it because they don't know which one to make the holding company. Is it LLC, C corp, whatever entity it is. What entity is supposedly supposed to be holding these different companies, and how am I supposed to be on a company name and things of that nature. And so you can go on as a founder. We've always shared that with our trustees. Now foundership is where a lot of the great CEOs are right now, is they're going as a founder. But we see a lot of people, and this is the unfortunate part, and we're going to do an episode completely about it, which is the CEO slash owner. If there's a big difference, why do you think you have a slash? Why didn't you just say you were one or the other? because they're not the same thing. But for some odd reason, people think, well, if I say I'm the CEO, that means I'm the owner, and that's not the case. So when we talk about holding companies, there's a very creative element to it, and so we encourage trustees and work with trustees that say, hey, these are the different holdings that we're holding currently, and we're looking to put ourselves in this position to hold this and things of that nature. And so that's what we see. We see trustees in a position of trusteeship, whether it's in any type of holding company. Anything can be called a holding company. To be completely honest, a DBA could be called a holding company, but it's not. It's traditionally the DBA is an extension of a holding company, and that's the bottom line. So when we share this with people, people come up from the Moorish aspect, like, oh, you got a DBA your name, and then it's the all caps and the lowercase. Ladies and gentlemen, when you're in commerce, everything's uppercase. So if you're going into a commercial environment, everything's uppercase. Why? Because you're dealing with computers. The algorithm now makes it uppercase, lowercase. They don't need to acknowledge upper and lowercase in the public sector. Why? Because it's not human. It's not. It's not. It's not. So once we understand that, we can move from that perspective that, okay, business as usual is uppercase, and then you can just handle your business affairs properly, which, because that's the case, it's business as usual, uppercase, holding company, period, because it's uppercase. It's not just, oh, well, how does this look with the holding company? Well, you have a holding company that you may be a manager or a founder of. That's, once again, we call it a SPAC, which is a special purpose acquisition company. A holding company can be called a SPAC. So these are the new entities that are being utilized on the public side. People say, well, what's a SPAC? Is it an LLC, a C corp? They don't really care on the public side what it is. They're looking to take companies public with holding companies such as SPACs right now. SPACs are raising hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars on the private side, and they are considered holding companies. SPACs used to be things that held entities, not just raised funds and went public. But now they are taking these holding companies, SPACs, and taking them public, in the public. And so it's interesting because these are the different dynamics when we talk about a holding company. People say, "Oh, well, can I take my ideas public?" You now have more of a leverage to take your idea public, whether it's going for a $2 million capital raise, whether it's going for a $50 million capital raise or $100 million capital raise. The floor is wide open right now to being in the right structure, being in an entity that's called a SPAC, not just being in, oh, I'm in Rufus Doofus Dungle Fort Dorf LLC, and it's like, okay, how does that help you? Like, they're gonna look at you and say, what is the purpose of your company? Whereas if you go in and say you're a SPAC, they know completely what you are. They know that you are a special purpose acquisition company. They know that you are going to hold assets for a period of time, raise money for these assets for a period of time. And once you raise the money for these assets, you're probably going to take that entity public. That is the case. Some entities don't go public, but the SPACs are looking to go public all the time now. They're looking to say, okay, they're literally, SPACs are raising hundreds of millions of dollars, period. And these are frequently used entities on the public side. But once again, it used to be looked at as a holding company. So sometimes they will buy assets and just hold assets. And that's what happens sometimes. Whereas they're not looking to do that now. What they're looking to do now is they're looking to go public more and more. And they've been looking to do this for the past 10 years. They've been doing this for the past 10 years heavily. You've seen a lot of people in this space. Well, that would be 2012 or 2011. And that would be the case for sure. 10 plus years. You've seen that. By around 2009, after around 2009, you start seeing a lot more SPACs pop up, and these people have gone public, and people are raising billions of dollars with this. And that just means that literally you are a holding company. You go out, you have $1 million entity now. It's cash flowing $1 million a year. That's it. It's just cash flowing $1 million. Well, guess what? Somebody's gonna buy it off you. They may not buy it off you for 4 times EBITDA, but if they bought it from you for 2 times EBITDA, so they say, okay, look, we know you're gonna make $2 million in the next 2 years. So we'll give you $2 million and buy you out. So we're going to buy you out for you making future profits for the rest of your life. Because in the next 5 years, 10 years, if you made $1 million every year, you're going to make that money. So they're going to say, okay, we're going to end any future profits from that particular venture. And that's why you're going to sell it. See, most asset holders are holding for cash flow purposes. They have to prove their business model. So once they prove the business model, they're gonna try to either take it public or they're just gonna try to sell it to someone on the private market that has a holding company. That's what's going on. People in the private have holding companies and they just buy assets. Special acquisition company. Now we're talking about the holding company because people have asked about this for years. When you gonna drop that track? Because we need to know, how it all looks. Once again, some people say, oh, can a trustee be a trust? Can a grantor be a trust? Can a beneficiary be a trust? Can anybody be a trust? A trust is a person. It can do everything you can do except for vote. We talked about this. We talked about this at the workshops. We talked about this for years now. It's like a person, but it doesn't die. Corporations don't die. Corporations can live on from generation to generation. People utilize them as vehicles, whether it's on the public side or they trying to entertain the private side with it. Where are we at with this information nowadays, ladies and gentlemen? The holding company. Are people in your community talking about a holding company? Are they talking about special acquisition companies, special purpose acquisition companies? Because this is what we're talking about in the private. We're talking about holding companies. We're talking about, having maybe a multi-layered approach in your business affairs, so you can have some level of defense and minimizing liability. It's the best position to be in, this position of no own nothing, control everything. It's business, not personal. But how many people been trained because we went to public school? Oh, what do you mean trust Christian? That means you got to invest in your private education. Christian at trustchristian.com. Once again, that's Christian at trustchristian.com. You can invest in your private education. The holding company maybe is what you don't need. You don't need a holding company. Maybe you just need to go out there and do business and keep creating separate companies. What's wrong with that? Well, I want to put it all under one umbrella. That's when you get ready to sell two or three businesses. When you built them up, you can sell them now because you put them in a holding company. A holding company can come along at any moment. It doesn't have to come along in the beginning. It can come along somewhere in the middle there and say, "Hey, you know what? We're gonna own these companies." And guess what? You may not even truly be the owner then. By at that point, you knew how to put the company where it was in place, and you're not the owner. And now you're still just the manager of those entities, and you're not taking a salary. But the holding company is making sure the bills are paid. Is making sure the business is growing. It's taking the profits because that's the beneficial owner. And you're the manager. You're the founder. You're the CEO. How many people are taking on the leadership position of their family, the leadership position of their company? Because how many people are taking the leadership position of the holding company? The holding company is holding multiple ventures. That means if you're holding generational wealth in a holding company, you know how thick your manual has to be for training that trustee to know how to manage multiple different styles of businesses that have different key metrics to let you know whether the business is going to grow or not. How do you know if the business is going to grow? Oh, we're just going to see if we can just wing it. You don't wing it. You have to have set parameters. You have to have a budget. In business, you have budgets. The holding company, it has a budget. The conversations that are needed in society nowadays of more business conversation and intellect, the holding company. Are we doing business globally now? Are we doing business internationally? How you going to do business internationally with a domestic entity? But they told you you could use an IBC, an International Business Corporation. Oh, I could use this. So you could use an international business corporation. But what happens when you go in those other jurisdictions? They say, oh, you're an American. We're not even trying to let you open up a bank account. And if we do, we're not going to let you start bringing all this money into our country because we already know what that means. Your country is going to want some type of reporting. Why do you think Switzerland doesn't really turn away Americans still? You got to go through the right doors. The holding company is the international holding company. Could have put that. International holding company. The domestic is the DBA. That's where we are, ladies and gentlemen. The holding company. People have asked for it for years. We finally wanted to do a particular episode about it because we were speaking with someone about it again. We got episodes on request right now. If you got any episodes that you would like to have requested, feel free to type them into the chat. We'll either get them in the chat or we're gonna get them via email, Christian at trustchristian.com. Feel free to email over the episode that you would like to have done, Christian at trustchristian.com. But we definitely take episodes by request. The holding company is an episode by request. Once again, but we definitely do episodes by request. So we definitely will let people know that for sure. And this is just one of those episodes. So definitely want to talk about the holding company because this is the creme de la creme type thought process. When people are thinking holding company thought process, but it's like, are you thinking it in the right capacity, in the right position? Is the right entity in place? How are you handling that situation? Those are very, very important things when we're talking about trusteeship or business and anything of that nature. What is the position that the holding is in? The holding is in a position, and then how we move forward into the growing position. A lot of people will get sometimes stuck on holding and they don't really pursue growing because holding is real work. It requires thinking. It requires you to have a strong emotional bank account. That's what it requires. It requires planning. People got to plan in the private. People come to Trust Christian, they say, oh, Trust Christian, my time management skills are piss poor. And guess what? Trust Christian says you got to write down everything that you do every day for the hour, on the hour, until you got track of it. Once you see what you be doing every hour on the hour, then you can go back and say, okay, this is where I can take time in or take time out for the hour or not the hour. To do what? To study for 9 minutes. To read over a book for 9 minutes. To build your dream and visualize for 9 minutes. You gotta make a phone call for 9 minutes to different people. You gotta plan out your next day for 9 minutes. These are the things that you might have to do as a trustee. You gotta dig deep when your day's going and you got, oh, I got this thing I'm making transition, or I got a business that I'm managing. You gotta manage it with what? The 9 minute rule. You gotta say, okay, but I got 9 minutes to study trusteeship, because if you don't have 9 minutes to study trusteeship for your family, how are you going to have the time that you need when you need to have it? Because you're not making the time. You got to make the 9 minutes. You got to carve out the 9 minutes for trusteeship. That's what you got to do. Somebody said, Trust Christian, they not used to your personality. This was this group that we were engaging with recently. They say, oh, they're not used to your personality, Trust Christian. These people, they're used to employee mindset. Well, okay, whose fault is that? We're talking about holding company. Holding company are people that want to move into entrepreneurship. This is what holding company mindset sounds like. Why? I remember going to my mentor. I was like, I'm gonna get into this hard money lending business. He said, Christian, that business is pretty ruthless. He said that business requires you to really be like serious about collecting the money on the contract. He's like, in that business, just be aware you might have to sue somebody. What if you loaned money out to your family? Would you sue him? Oh, there's no moral code. Hey, when it comes to business, ladies and gentlemen, business is business, personal is personal. That's the holding company. He didn't want to scare. He didn't want to scare me, but he was just sharing like, look, this ain't no games. Don't be trying to get over here thinking you're gonna be lending people money and people not gonna try to steal and run off with the money, not try to pay you back on time and things like that. Having a mentor puts you in a position where you got somebody's sage experience being passed down to you. So it might have took them years to get that information, and so you got that information in a shorter period of time. You got a condensed version of 25 years of information, or 10 years, or however long you got into that. You got to start somewhere, though, ladies and gentlemen. You got to start digging your heels into some type of passion or something that you love, something that you enjoy, something that people say, oh, you would do for free. The podcast is something we don't say we do for free, but at the same time, we still enjoy it. We bring on our partners. We would love to give out more interviews, but we just know a lot of the private people we know, they're not trying to come out and talk to people about how to make money. And that's just being honest. They don't really have any interest in talking to people about how to get their money right and all this other stuff. They have no interest in that. They're working, they're building their businesses, and they have time for their family. That's all they have for it. Whereas when we get Short Cornell, the trading partner, to come out, when he comes out, is once again, that's a good grace right there, because a lot of people don't have people like him to come out and feature him on the episode. Like, we're the ones that feature him. The vault, we feature Cornell because we've known him. We know, like, okay, once you get in the holding position, you know in trusteeship, you need to know how to grow it. You got to know how to grow it. We address this need for our trustees, but how many trustees have gotten trustee training and said, okay, I'm going to take the trading knowledge serious, and I'm going to help Trust Christian and Cornell put together a trading platform where they got hundreds of traders through their platform and trusteeship, and we pulling off a Ray Dalio with $200 million because we got 200 traders that's managing $1 million. Oh, Trust Christian, that's a holding company. You got to have 200 traders that can manage $1 million. That's $200 million. Can you manage $1 million? Can you trade to get $1 million trust account? Can you trade to that? That is the challenge for trustees. That's what Trust Christian and Cornell have been saying to you all silently. Is, can you all trade to $1 million? Can you put yourself in a position where you can trade $1 million? How you gonna say you're a big boy or big girl and you're not trading $1 million, but you're a trader? There should be silence until trading is to $1 million trust account. When you're able to move into the Bloomberg account. That's what we know. We know we've sat around hedge funds that have 30 people that are managing $100 million. Each of them are managing more than $1 million each. 30 people, 50 people. Of course, there's hedge funds that say, "Oh, we got 1,500 people, and uh, 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 we're managing $100 billion." They're a holding company. They got 1,500 traders, only 1,500 people around the world. Shout out to New Jersey. We need traders in New Jersey. That's trading, living there, investing, taking the money out the market and investing it. Trading, holding company mindset. That they're trading in Jersey. Shout out to Jersey for tuning in live, listening to replay. Where's Cali? We got Dania Beach. Where else? We got Philly tuning in. Traders. People that are putting themselves in a position where they can predict the future. Oh no, Trust Christian. I'm not good at predicting the future. That's why you're working a job, because you're getting handouts. But when you're a business person, you have to predict the future. Holding company mindset says it's business, not personal. So you're going to get the $1 million trust account. You're going to go out there, you're going to work, you're going to build that account, you're going to show yourself approved, and then you're going to come back and say, I got a track record. Put me on. Put me in the game, coach. Put me in the hedge fund, coach. Put me in the hedge fund where we raise funds for billions. When you can manage millions, you can manage billions. It's no different. It's just more money. It's zeros on a piece of paper. The way you get to making that money is completely different than saying, oh, you're going to just make the zeros go up. It doesn't work that way. You have to come up with ideas as a trader. How many people are able to come up with ideas? How many people are able to predict the future? That's a skill set. You're able to go look at companies and say, you know what? In the next 3 months, this is where this company should be. And in the next 3 months, this is where the economy is going to be. In the next 3 months, this is where gold going to be. In the next 3 months, this is where oil is going to be. In the next 3 months, this is where silver is going to be. That's where it's going to be. In the next 3 months, the next 6 months, the next 12 months. That's what the hedge funds are doing. They're trying to tell you they're going to play the long game, but they're gobbling up people in the short term now. Don't think they're not gobbling up people in the short term. Who you think created the algorithms? The hedge funds did. The algorithms were created by the hedge funds. So the hedge funds have given people on the public side free data collecting tools. It's like McAfee. The guy that owns McAfee owns, we think, Microbilt. think he owns Microbill, or he owns Innovis, one of the two. And this man is, he's got a defense software for you. And guess what? He also has the data collecting agency that he's selling the data. The holding company. See, the holding company is sort of like a blind trust on the public side. So a blind trust, a politician will have a holding company called a blind trust. The blind trust says, guess what? He doesn't know what it's invested in. It's a holding company, and he's separate from it. He doesn't know what it's invested in. But guess what? He could have a campaign against, or she could have a campaign against gun violence. But guess what? On the blind trust, it's buying. It's a gun. It's an investor in gun ammunition, bullets, guns, internet software for criminal defense software, anti-spyware, all different type of things. It's a holding company. Is it in one entity? Well, hey, does that entity do a DBA? Possibly not. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. It's no big deal. That's where you get creative in the entity. You gotta get in first. Are you gonna invest in your private education? Are you gonna come to the workshop? We almost have half the room sold out, which is interesting because we probably have half the room already taken up. But we know, it's gonna build up, and we know how the crowd goes. We still gave people enough time. We gave y'all the 60 days this time, ladies and gentlemen. It's coming up on about 40 something days. Less than coming to the workshop, and we're really excited about it. It's May 1st. It's gonna be in Atlanta. We'll say that much. And we'll leave it at that. It's a private location. You get the location once you go through with getting the ticket, if you're going to get a ticket, if you're a non-trustee. And then trustees already know, trustees have never had to pay for workshops. We do the workshops for the trustees. That's what we do workshops for, the trustees. The trustees need the workshops. This is where they can connect face to face, because right now we're on the internet. So when we get off the internet, it's the face to face. It's the hand to hand combat, the stuff that everybody wants. Everybody wants that. Oh man, I want to know who's in the private. I want to know what they look like. I want to know what they talk like. I want to know what their families look like. Okay, well, that's what they got going on in the private. We've had people show up with and without their family because they had to make moves with or without their family. And we always appreciate everybody that's always done it. And so they've actually requested it once again with this trustee work training. It's probably going to be a real epic one because it's a popular demand. We haven't done trustee training workshops in about 3 quarters. We didn't do the fake stuff online. We saved it for the face-to-face contact. The hand-to-hand combat, and that's really important. So we definitely wanted to share that with everyone. That we do open it up for non-trustees. Once again, you can feel free to reach out. You'll get the non-trustee flyer. We definitely got to post it in the flyer section, and we will this episode as the flyer, so you all can see that. But it is May 1st. It's a 9 to 5 event. Always 9 to 5. It's a Saturday, so you can't make any excuses for why there's we're not gonna make it because it's a Thursday or a Tuesday or a Wednesday. It's like it's trustee training, ladies and gentlemen, for your family. This comes first. We got trustees coming from all over the country, almost all over the world. So we always know that, trustees would love to have it. Oh, some people say, okay, are you going to do any internet stuff? We're not doing any live streaming. It's straight up, you come to the workshop or you don't get the information. Our mentors never did it that way, and we're not about to start now. It takes away from the training. The training is meant to be in person so you can get a feel for the room. There's an energy in the room. It's a private energy in the room, and we know this, and that's why people love it. So we appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listening to replay. Shout out to everybody that listen live, listen to replay, the holding company. Now you know what it is. You get creative in it, not trying to create it. So you got to figure out, okay, how's it going to be set up? How's my family? How's the situation going to look? If it's one, maybe I need more than one. But you got to have a plan. That's the first thing. You got to have a plan. Oh, wow. That means you got multiple things that you want to do. Right. Okay. So you got XYZ Publishing. It's XYZ Company. Then XYZ Company is XYZ Holding Company. Okay, XYZ Holding Company has XYZ Publishing as a DBA. It has XYZ Productions as a DBA. It has XYZ Entertainment as a DBA. That holding company, XYZ Holding Company, is holding those companies as a in the form of a holding company, and those companies are DBAs. Those are scenarios that we're looking at. Appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listen, replay. Feel free, if you got any questions, feel free to type them into the chat real quick before we hop off. Otherwise, we're just going to say appreciate y'all for tuning in live, listen, to replay. Shout out to all the live listeners, people listening to replay. We just always appreciate it, and we're gonna keep bringing out the best episodes to y'all. And we look forward to hearing from y'all and seeing y'all at the workshop. It's gonna be good to get back out the house, connect with people, and get some business done again. Starting out early this year, we already got a group of people moving forward. And it's interesting when we start talking about raising, birthing millionaires. It's like, geez, it's like, how does that work? But at the same time, it's fine. We all cogs in the wheel of the universe. So let's look at ourselves as that and be our best part, do our part, and we're gonna find the best parts in other people as well. Appreciate you all for tuning in live, listening to replay. Shout out Christian at trustchristian.com. If you come to the workshop, Christian at trustchristian.com. If you're looking to get the consultation, get in trustee training, Christian at trustchristian.com. Peace.